In any sort of competition, a metagame will form. A strategy or handful of strategies will prove to be superior, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Is no different. But as the saying goes, styles make fights, and some matchups or even cards can expose the most powerful decks. Some counters are unintentional, and others are extremely deliberate. There are broad examples like Acid Rain and Last Day of the Witch against Machine and Spellcaster decks respectively, but it can get more specific. Cards like GB Hunter and Hunter of Black Feathers were meant to hard counter the metas of their day, being Gladiator Beasts and Blackwings. And if you were playing a Dragon deck back in the day, you would never want to see a card like Buster Blader. In a modern setting, you probably wouldn't want to see something like Fallen of Albaz, because they could set it and whip your board with Albalonatus, but staying on the topic of Buster Blader, this guy always pops back up every couple of years. Not as a dominant meta contender, but as a niche tech choice in Dragon-centric decks, the same decks he's meant to destroy. It's especially odd as the era of legacy support it comes from is very hit or miss, as you'd understand if you've seen some of the other videos on the channel. But in today's video, we're going to find out why Buster Blader has aged so well. But before we get into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get started. This should be pretty brief, as there isn't much old stuff to cover. Of course, we do have to start with Buster Blader, who was first obtainable as a Dual Seek promo before being printed in Pharaoh's Servant in 2002. It gains 500 attack for every dragon monster your opponent controls or is in their graveyard, and by no means is this card exceptional, but it's still required to play in the deck. It did have a few other support cards, but nothing significant in the context of the Destruction Sword archetype. Emblem of the Dragon Destroyer is a decent card, being able to search Buster Blader, but not a mandatory addition. Skilled White Magician is cool, and I love the Skilled Magician concept, but it's not very good, and Miracle Restoring continues the spell counter trend. And it's hard not to mention Buster Blader without mentioning Dark Paladin. It has the same attack gain effect, but it applies to both fields and graves, and it can also negate a spell by discarding a card, and this is not once per turn. Once again, doesn't find its way into the Destruction Sword deck, but still a good card. In 2016, Breakers of Shadow delivered the Destruction Sword archetype to the TCG. As I mentioned earlier, I've covered a lot of these archetypes from this era on the channel, and one of the more interesting things to me is the choices made regarding the naming and structure of the archetypes. In the case of Red Eyes, most cards have Red Eyes in the name, but unfortunately the best card in the deck doesn't, but that's likely a balancing choice. DM does it a little differently. Most cards just mention Dark Magician, and that's enough for the deck to work. Blue Eyes kind of does both, and BLS probably does it the worst by referencing BLS or Gaia monsters. Destruction Sword goes down the Red Eyes route, and for the most part it's fine. Everything is searchable and accessible, but as we go through the cards, there are some minor issues. We're going to start with the normal summon of the deck, Buster Welp of the Destruction Swordsman. When this card is normal summoned, you can add one Destruction Sword card from your deck to your hand, and you can only use one of the following effects once per turn, and only once that turn. You can tribute this card, special summon one Buster Blader from your hand or graveyard. If this card is in your graveyard and you control Buster Blader, you can discard one Destruction Sword card, special summon this card. It's the normal summon that searches. Very standard and very good, but some of this card's properties just make it that little bit better. It is a level 1 light tuner, making it an honorary Blue Eyes card. It can be searched with Wishes for Eyes of Blue, Sage with Eyes of Blue, which came out in the same year, and can be normal summoned with the effect of Mausoleum of White. A monster that searches on summon can never be bad, and the other effects are solid as well. It can summon Buster Blader from your hand, but not a Buster Blader monster, which will be important shortly, and the graveyard effect is fine as well, although you don't get the search if it's special summoned. Next, we'll move on to the Buster Blader retrain, Buster Blader, the Destruction Sword Master. I've got some issues with this card, but we'll go over its effect first. This card's name becomes Buster Blader while in the field or in the graveyard. If a monster your opponent controls is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one of those destroyed monsters. Equip it to this card. Once per turn, you can send one monster card you control that's equipped to this card to the graveyard. Destroy all monsters your opponent controls with the same type as the monster sent to the graveyard. It's really unfortunate that this card can't summon itself. It kind of just ends up sitting there in your hand. You can't summon it with Buster Welp because that card specifies Buster Blader, and the retrain is not Buster Blader in the hand. You can special summon it off the trap card Destruction Sword Memories. That's not really what you're playing the trap for. The effect is pretty solid for 2016, as a board wipe is pretty good, but getting it on the field would have been tricky even then. I get that they still want you to play at least one copy of the original, but it wouldn't have hurt to have this card always be treated as Buster Blader. Going back to the main deck dragons, we've got 3 more, and the next is maybe the most popular of them all. Dragon Buster Destruction Sword is a level 1 Dark Dragon tuner. All of the dragons besides Buster Welp can equip themselves to a Buster Blader from the hand or field and provide some sort of floodgate effect. Dragon Buster has the strongest effect of the bunch, locking your opponent out of the extra deck. This card really made its name in Dragon Link, as you could equip it from the deck with the Union Carrier and lock your opponent out of the extra deck, along with your field of Borreload Savage, Heretic Seals, and more. The dragons also have secondary effects while equipped, and Dragon Buster can summon itself to the field, which basically makes it a Union monster, and it's a bit of a shame they didn't take this direction with the rest of these cards. Next is Wizard Buster Destruction Sword, which prevents your opponent from activating monster effects in the graveyard, and the second effect allows you to send it to the grave to recycle a Destruction Sword card. This one is pretty good too. A slightly worse Abyss Dweller is still good, although if you're picking between this and Dragon Buster, it's probably going to be the latter. And the final main deck dragon is Robot Buster Destruction Sword. Spells and traps that are already face up on your opponent's field cannot activate their effects. And by sending it to the graveyard, the equipped monster gains 1000 attack until the end phase. Pretty easily the worst one, but could definitely be a game winner in matchups against specific decks with a lot of continuous spells and traps. But that wraps up the main deck monsters. The next two monsters really only make sense that we talk about them together, and they're Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman, and Buster Dragon. This combo is ridiculous, and we're gonna get into why, starting with the fusion. Must be fusion summon, cannot attack directly, gains 1000 attack and defense for each dragon your opponent controls or is in their graveyard. Change all dragon monsters your opponent controls to defense position. Also, dragon monsters in your opponent's possession cannot activate their effects. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. Destroyer Swordsman is Buster Blader on crack. 1000 attack and defense for each dragon, piercing, and a floodgate-like effect is pretty good. It could use some sort of protection, but generally a really solid boss monster. The only issue being, if your opponent's not playing dragons, you're kinda dead in the water. But Buster Dragon changes that completely. All monsters your opponent controls become dragons. Once per turn, if you do not control a Buster Blader monster, you can target one Buster Blader in your graveyard, special summon it. Once per opponent's turn, quick effect. You can target one Buster Blader monster you control, equip it with one Destruction Sword monster from your graveyard. All of your opponent's monsters become dragons while on the field. So Buster Dragon and Destroyer Swordsman together means your opponent cannot activate monster effects on the field. And in addition, your Destroyer Swordsman will have a ridiculously high attack stat, and being able to equip a Destruction Sword monster to a Buster Blader monster is big, because the main deck dragons can only equip to Buster Blader specifically. I'm really glad that they went with this approach for the dynamic between these cards. And now that we've talked about the fusion monster, it makes sense to talk about the fusion spell, Destruction Swordsman Fusion. It's a pretty standard fusion spell using monsters from your hand or field, but it is quick play and can recycle itself by sending a card from your hand to the graveyard. And being a quick play is actually pretty significant. Because Destroyer Swordsman has a continuous effect, it can be pretty oppressive dropping this in the middle of your opponent's turn, assuming you have Buster Dragon on board. And the other spell is Karma of the Destruction Sword, which lets you banish up to 3 monsters of the same type from your opponent's graveyard and give Buster Blader an attack boost. Once again, being a quick play is kind of the deciding factor for this card, as it's not excellent, but the spell speed makes it an interesting choice to play in the deck. And finally, we get to the trap cards, which are arguably the highlight of the strategy. Destruction Sword Flash allows you to banish all monsters your opponent controls if you control a fusion monster that mentions Buster Blader, and has a targeting and protection effect in the grave for your Buster Blader monsters. You do have to be fully set up for this card to make an impact, but the effect is still kind of crazy. And this is probably the worst of the 3 traps. Destruction Sword Memories was released in the Dark Illusion, and it allows you to discard a card to summon one Buster Blader monster from your deck. But the most important effect is the one in the grave. It can banish itself to summon the new fusion by banishing monsters from your graveyard as material. It's effectively Miracle Fusion, and it's the perfect card to dump with the final trap, which was released in Maximum Crisis, Prologue of the Destruction Swordsman. Send one Destruction Sword card and one Buster Blader from your deck to the graveyard. Special summon one Buster Dragon from your extra deck or graveyard, but destroy it during the end phase of the next turn. You can banish this card from your grave. This turn, Destruction Sword cards you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. So you can use Prologue to dump Buster Blader and Memories. Then, if you have a dragon in your graveyard, you can chain Memories to make the fusion monster. My only gripe with this card is that the graveyard effect protects Destruction Sword cards, which does not include the fusion and synchro monster. But regardless, an amazing card, and this is stitched together perfectly by the most recent addition to the archetype, Protector Welp of the Destruction Sword. This card has a couple effects, but the first one is the most important, allowing you to send a Destruction Sword card from your deck to the graveyard. If you open Sage with Eyes of Blue, you can summon Sage, search Buster Welp, use Sage to make Spirit, Spirit search Mausoleum, use the additional normal summon to summon Buster Whelp, search Prologue, use Spirit and Whelp to make Protector, dump Dragon Buster, set Prologue and pass, activate Prologue, dump Buster Blader and Memories, chain Memories, banishing Buster Blader and Spirit, summon Buster Dragon, and Buster Dragon can equip Dragon Buster to the fusion. Buster Whelp allowed Buster Blader to be a fairly consistent engine, and a super accessible one, as Buster Whelp is a generic Link 2. So why has the Destruction Sword archetype aged so well? Well, I think there are a few factors. The first is the simplicity of the strategy. You make the synchro, you make the fusion, that's it. You can't really mess it up. Blue Eyes was very similar in 2016. Summon big dragons, and then maybe a synchro or maybe Uxie's. Simple and limited, but effective. And the lack of bells and whistles actually helps the cards stick to the game plan. The second big reason for these cards aging so well is their floodgate-like effects. The main deck dragons that can equip to Buster Blader are floodgates, and as mentioned earlier, Dragon Buster is by far the best one, but Wizard Buster is excellent turning off monster effects in the graveyard, and Robot Buster is the weakest, but still relevant in some matchups. And on top of that, Destroyer Swordsman and Buster Dragon in tandem are basically Baguska, but arguably even stronger, as the monsters can't even attempt to activate their effects. Floodgates are really timeless. Cards like Gozen Match, Rivalry of Warlords, and Skill Drain are arguably better now than they were years ago. And the third big thing that I kind of mentioned earlier is that the trap cards are crazy, or at least within the context of the deck. Prologue being able to dump Memories to summon Buster Dragon, and Memories being able to activate in the same chain is such a good interaction. And of course, Protector Whelp wraps everything together. But as an individual card, besides being a generic Link 2 Dragon monster, it really isn't that crazy, which is a testament to the strength of the other cards. It's pretty common to see old strategies get 3, 4, or even 5 new cards, and you just run those and a couple of oldies, but Buster Blader only needed one. In terms of the future of this deck, I think it's in a very weird spot. It has a home as an engine in Blue Eyes, but as a solo strategy, it just doesn't have enough gas. And I can't really see the deck getting anything else in the future. If it does get more stuff down the line, it probably has to be taken in a different direction, because you can't really push the Floodgate strategy any further without it becoming too consistent. I'd like them to explore the Synchro route a little more, or even a Buster Blader fusion that can declare a type and have its effects apply to that type for the turn. Kind of similar to the main deck retrain, but obviously a little better. But I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments as well. But that's the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. What's your favorite hard counter or mismatch in Yu-Gi-Oh? Leave it in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.